What's up guys, it is JD from leterrip Adventures. So what are we doing today? Today we are actually installing a set of airbags on the Toyota Tacoma. Reason for that being is we are pulling not only a 1,200 pound trailer, we are pulling 2,000 pound plus quad runners. We are setting up the Overland, you've seen the rooftop tent, the rack. By the time we add all our gear and the miscellaneous stuff that comes along with it, that's going to start getting extremely heavy. So I want to make sure that not only for safety reasons, but for the longevity of the suspension, I can keep the ass end of the truck up where it needs to be once we get it fully loaded. Now you ask yourself, why are you going with these airbags? Because I've done it before. I went actually with the Firestone brand. These are the competitors to the Firestone. They're Tourque airbags. As far as quality wise, they seem pretty decent. With that being said, I actually installed them on the Chevy Silverado when I first started the channel because we were pulling a 22 or 24 foot double axle trailer with two full-size side-by-sides, decked out with all the pieces and parts and aftermarket, spare tires, all that stuff. It was too heavy. The truck was riding down the road like this, so we installed the airbags, and on that setup, it did not actually compromise the flex or how the geometry of the suspension worked. So I was very satisfied with them, and it's an easy 2 seconds, and you can 5 pounds of air in these bags will lift your truck anywhere from 2, 3, 4 inches. You go 10, 20 pounds, it'll lift your truck quite a bit. No matter how much you put in the back of there, you could technically overload your truck with these airbags. But first steps first, we've got all our hardware laid out. So we've currently got everything, carriage bolts, all our nylon lock nuts. Now you will have to make sure before you start install that you have the right size socket. So I actually had to go buy, and it is 1 1/8 inches to fit these bolts right here. Now you'll see where those go later in the install, but those bolts actually go through the frame rail out the other side, and unfortunately I had to go get an extra socket. $4 to get this, not a big deal. Now, first steps first, we have to actually get certain parts of the airbag installed or assembled before we back the truck in here, which is going to be pretty straightforward. Now, this is what I recommend, and I'm kicking myself in the butt for not doing this. I have had these airbags for a while, and I did not do an inventory of what was in these airbags, and I am actually missing a component, which is, it's a no bueno, because these are $300 and some, and I'm missing parts, so not very happy about that. What I'm actually missing is on one of these airbags, there's supposed to be a shield that comes down and protects that airbag from the exhaust, and I don't have it. So it's either I wait another month to get the part for it, or I just install it and fingers crossed, hope for the best, and maybe you have to replace it down the road. I'm just going to install it and go from there. So let's get some tools out. Let's get through the instructions here, and let's start getting these airbags installed. We've got lower plate like so. Goes on the bottom of the airbag like so. Okay, that's that part, easy enough. Now a lot of this stuff you do not tighten down, guys, because you have to get everything assembled and in the truck before you actually tighten everything down. Next step, we've got your second bracket. Now when you make sure that you install this, obviously you want the flanges up, but you want to make sure that there is a, see that mounting pin that actually goes inside of the bracket. So make sure that that is like so before you tighten everything down. All right, from there we've got our nylon nut, and then we will tighten that down completely. Okay, next step is once you get the top bracket on, you get the bottom bracket on, you actually install your air fitting. Now it does come, as you can see, with thread tape on it, and it says in the instructions to thread that down until the thread tape is no longer showing. You know, what's nice is it gives you the ability to move this fitting to adjust it where it needs to be. In the pictures, it shows that it is facing straight this way because your rail, your truck bed rail will actually, frame rail will run this way, and your airline will come out here and then end up going up along the frame rail. So now that that's assembled, we're going to put the other one together and then get the truck backed in here. Now that we have the airbag pre-assembled, next step is the bump stop. It needs to go. So we are just gonna lop this thing off. All right, bump stop, you're done. Now, once I set the airbag in there, it should sit on the leaf springs. That is the next step. Now, one thing I did have to do, guys, is I actually, I'll show you right here. I took my actual Tacoma jack, put it under the hitch, and separated this space between the leaf spring pack and the frame rail in order to compress the airbag. Now, I have already done the driver's side. That side is a pain in the butt. There's wire harnesses, brake lines, there's fuel tank, there's all kinds of stuff in the way. That's why I wanted to show you this side. It is a little easier, same concept, same principle, but a lot less of a pain in the butt on this side. So from here, we start mounting some hardware. Next up is your bracket right here. This side isn't so bad because you can sneak it in from the back side, no problem, which is absolutely phenomenal. The other side, not so much. Okay, and then it goes your 1.125" bolt with a flat washer through the bracket. Hopefully everything kind of stays. And then it goes from the back side, flat washer, lock washer, and your nut on the back. I can already tell the side's going to be 3 times as easy because you had the Verschnagel tools in there. You had all kinds of stuff. Hold on a second. You had the Verschnagel tools and all kinds of stuff around and in between and next to. If you did have a second hand, this would make this a lot easier. Okay, I'm just going to run this in as tight as I can get it. And then from there, we are going to dry fit the rest of the hardware. So from here, we are going to go this little pressure plate that hooks on the frame rail right here. And next is this little plate that goes on right here that actually squeezes down on your frame rail. It does take a little finesse and arguing with it to get it in there. Okay, you've got one there and you've got one there. And then we are going to start the 1/2" nuts on the back side of this. No washers. There's one of them, and once again, we're not going to tighten this down until we've got all the hardware started and everything lined up where it wants to be. And then once you got your 1/2" bolt started, if you can see right up in there, you'll have 4 9/16, 2 go on one side, 2 go on the other. That actually attaches that bracket that we put inside the frame rail to the actual top plate of your airbag. We've got those tightened up there, and there is 2 directly on the other side. We have these just started, this just started. Now we are going to tighten this up, and then we are going to tighten up our clamp, and then we are going to run our carriage bolts around the leaf spring pack and get those tightened down next. Next is going to be your brackets that capture around the bottom side of your leaf spring pack. Now there's 4 carriage bolts. There is a square head on the end of these, and I'll try to show you here. As you can see, there is a, wait for it, there's my finger, there is a square hole that these carriage bolts sit inside of. So you don't want to tighten all 4 of these down, or you don't want to tighten one down and then go to the next one. You kind of want to work your way around in a crisscross pattern to make sure you draw them in equally. Now you don't want them flat side up, you want them so the bracket bites into your leaf spring pack. Now on the driver's side, or in the pictures, they recommend that you have the adjustment or the slot facing towards the tire. There's interference on that side as far as your shock and stuff is concerned, and I'm thinking the same issue you would run into on your shock on this side right there. So I am going to disregard the pictures or the instructions and turn it around that way. Don't think it's going to matter. I checked for interference on the back side and there's nothing in the way, so I don't think it matters one way or the other. So I'm going to get all this stuff tightened down, or at least started, draw everything tight, and then from there the next step is going to be the airlines, which are pretty straightforward. It is a plug-and-play style system. Biggest thing with the airlines is you have to make sure that you make an extremely straight cut. So whether or not you have a hose cutter or a brand new razor blade out of the knife, that way you can make a nice 90-degree cut to make sure that it fits inside of that fitting and you don't end up with any air leaks. Once we get everything installed as far as running airlines, obviously I'm going to do a leak test on all the fittings and everything to make sure that nothing leaks. And then we're going to do a droop test on the suspension again to see if we get back to that 10 1/4 on the droop, to make sure I don't, I guess, limit what the suspension on this truck is capable of, because that may determine whether or not I switch leaf spring packs or if I stick with the airbags. Biggest thing for me is I know they work as long as I don't lose flexibility as far as the suspension is concerned. So that's yet to be determined. So we're going to get these tightened up and we'll go from there. All right, so this is the next thing I was talking about, is you have to cut these lines perfectly square, close to 90 as you can, because it is a push or an insert. All you do is you it in the end. So these need to be square to make sure they don't get any leaks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a razor blade out of the utility knife, and let me turn you down here a little bit, and I am going to try to cut this perfectly 90 degrees with no sharp edges, no double cuts, nothing like that, because I do not want a leak. And as you can see, that baby is nice and square. So we're going to do this. We're going to do the other end. That one actually looks pretty freaking good. That one looks pretty good if you ask me. So I'm going to leave that one. Okay, and then from there, I actually, check it out. Let's get up underneath here a little bit. I dropped the spare tire because it will make it a lot easier to make sure my routing is correct, because my fittings are up in there. I'm going to run them along my frame rail, zip tie them to the harness right here, back up, and then run my fittings out the back of the bumper. So let's get some lines ran, and then we got to drill some holes in the bumper. Got it popped into the fitting, and from here it is just work it where you want it to go. So I'm going to try to untwist this. Stuff is not very flexible, I will warn you of that, but it runs extremely close to the exhaust here, and that's one thing I'm kind of bummed about, that they did not send me my heat shield, and I'm hoping that doesn't melt my bag. If it does, we'll see about getting a replacement, because that's numerous times now I've had missing hardware on multiple different companies, multiple different products. Like, what's going on, guys? Seriously? All right. And then they do provide you with this heat shrink shield, so I think I am going to run that. And I didn't pre-cut it because I don't exactly know how long or where I need it to end. One side is obviously going to be shorter than the other, because this one has to go across the back of the truck to where the fitting for where the fittings are going to be, where the lights are plugged in for the trailer. So I didn't want to cut it, ended up with it being too short. They do provide you with 16 feet, but I just better safe than sorry. I'm sure they give you just enough. Nobody'd want to splurge. So we are going to take that and put that right there, and then zip tie the first one right there. Okay, so that's exactly what I did, guys. Let me get some of this hose out of the way. I was able to push this bracket up a little bit. Oh yeah, this hose is annoying. Ha! Anyway, I was able to push that bracket up out of the way. Now these fittings here, they want you to put a washer on the back side of these. So by the time I put 2 washers, I'm going to try, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to have to go through the metal plate, and there's no real good location, and I want them tucked below, like I said, where the light plug-in is, which is right there, because I don't want them up in the way when I am trying to get in and out of the truck. I don't want them to get broke. So we're going to try this one right here. Let's go the right way. Just pushing the bracket a little bit up out of the way, and then I'll just have to remember which one's which. Not that it matters, because they're both going to have the same amount of air when they're full anyway. So there's that one. Okay, and then we're going to put this other one right below it. Whew. Okay, run this other one in there, just like so. Okay, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the back side when it's all said and done. And what's cool about these fittings, let me grab my razor blade. Okay, and once again, making sure that I've got a nice 90-degree cut. So we're gonna leave ourselves a little extra here. We're gonna bring it to right about there. Okay, and then just gotta spit on a little, get yourself a little lube on there, and then it just, once it goes, it'll go, push a little harder, and then it bottoms out, and that is supposed to be airtight. So once we put air to it, we'll find out. But as you can see, I got to clip all my zip ties, but it runs along there, runs all the way, and then back to the airbag. Obviously, I got to run the other side, which the fitting is right up over there, and then we will finish this up and then mount them to the outside and air test these things. Okay, and then that's where we mounted the fittings. You can see they had bigger washers. I went with a couple smaller washers. That way everything fit like it was supposed to. And we're to the point now, I'm not cutting any zip ties, I'm not putting any tires on, not putting a spare tire rack, because I'm gonna put air to these things and make sure they don't leak. So next, let's get the air compressor, let's get some air in there and let's charge these things up. Oh yeah, they're going up. Get back underneath here, and what we're looking for is we're looking for air bubbles. So I've just got a soapy water, and I don't see any expanding air bubbles there. Let's check these two fittings right there. I see absolutely no bubbles there. And we got one more to check up in there. Let me grab the light so you guys can see a little better. Alright. And let's see. Right there it is. And we have absolutely no air leaks. None. Nada. Thank freaking goodness. Okay, so definitely recommend if this is a project you are doing to possibly have somebody else to give you a hand. Can you do it by yourself? You can. I don't have any leaks. I've got to finish cutting some zip ties. I've got to put my spare tire back up, do a little painting on the front part of that, so once I get the tire installed, I don't have to remove it when I get it up on the lift to finish painting like my axle and stuff, because as you can see, it's starting. It is starting. So we got a bunch of this stuff up in here, so I would like to just get it squared away, touch it up. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff that I would like to hit with a coat of paint and some rust stop and some other stuff to slow that stuff down. Good old Wisconsin rust belt. So from here, let's get this thing buttoned up. Let's get everything put away, get it back on all fours, and put a trailer and some quads on this thing. I'm satisfied. Install was a little bit of pain in the butt. So we are going to get the quads hooked up to this. We are doing some riding. You'll see that on one of the upcoming videos. But summarize, I would say, with help, it is probably about I'd say 2.5 hour job. By yourself, it is going to take you a little bit longer because you have to manipulate yourself, your wrenches, your tools on both sides of the frame rail, which did make it rather difficult. As far as install instructions, everything was great. As far as the product, I will have that in the link in the description. I'm kind of salty with the fact that the passenger side did not have the heat shield. I'm hoping that does not come and bite me in the ass down the road. It is far enough down the line that I'm hoping that the tailpipe, I know it gets hot, but I'm hoping it doesn't get hot enough to actually cause any damage to the airbag. I may actually reach out to those guys and see if I can get one, because The issue with it is I've had these for a while, haven't had a chance to install them, and never took an inventory as far as what was in the box. So whether or not they'll stand behind it, yet to be determined. But it's a success. Ease of install is great. Instructions are great. All the hardware was easy. Install was pretty straightforward. Fitment's pretty good. And the only issue we ran into was that missing heat shield. So we are going to try this out tomorrow. We're going to hook the quads up to it. And then from there, guys, like we always say, if you want, smash that subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that notification bell if you want. And on to the next adventure.